And we continue to follow the hearing at the Supreme Court. Of course, we'll bring that back to you shortly. But we also want to get to other news here in Washington, including the budget battle. Nearly a dozen House committees have now approved pieces of a massive Republican tax and spending cuts package, even as Democrats hammer controversial measures that would slash funding to Medicaid and food benefits. And with us here to discuss about that and more is Democratic Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan. Thank you for coming on. So Republicans say their plan to implement work requirements will make Medicaid more efficient, and they insist that the most vulnerable will keep their coverage. But you're still concerned. Why?
It's just not true. We've done a deep dive into what it could mean to Michigan. 700,000 people will have their health care terminated if this Republican plan comes to fruition. It takes a handful of Republican congresspeople to stand up against this. And that's why we're putting an all court, full court press on our delegation and on Republican congresspeople across the country. Don't go along with this. You're going to hurt the people you represent. One in particular, Congressman John James from Michigan, already voted for on behalf of the markup. He's running for my job. He wants my job next year, but he could stop 700,000 Michiganders from losing their health care if he had the backbone to stand up against this. And I'm encouraging him to do that. I'm not rooting for him, but if he stood up and did that, it would be a powerful sign to Michiganders that he's going to put them first. And that's what Michiganders expect.
Where are you getting the 700,000 number? Because I know Michigan commissioned your office commissioned a report, but that was before Republicans came out with their latest budget proposal, which does include some, as I said, work requirements and eligibility requirements that are stricter, but also doesn't include some of the more controversial proposals like withholding federal funding to states.
Yeah, supposedly. But you know what? Here's the thing. They're doing this in such a breakneck speed, and they are not giving people the opportunity to really understand what the ramifications are. And that's why I signed an executive directive telling my Department of Health and Human Services to do the examination and report what is at risk for Michigan. 700,000 people could see their health care terminated as a result of these changes. We know that as I've talked to people in my state, there are a lot of moms who've got children who get their health care through Medicaid. They're worried that they won't be able to take care of their families if they themselves as the parent lose their health care. I mean, this is going to have profound ramifications, and people will die as a result of this. We'll see health systems not survive if Medicaid gets cut in this dramatic fashion. And that's health care for everyone that gets impacted, not just people who get their health care through Medicaid.
So you think Republicans are essentially lying then when they say pregnant women, parents, the elderly will not be impacted by this?
I've heard these stories before, and I've seen the cruelty and the cuts that they are talking about. One of the things that I'm really proud of in Michigan is that as a legislator, the Democratic leader in the Senate, I worked with a Republican governor, my predecessor, Rick Snyder, to expand Medicaid. He, as a Republican, saw that when we provide health care for people, it strengthens our whole health care system. It creates better outcomes. It helps people get ready to be able to work. If you're unhealthy, you can't work. And that's the horrible irony in their talking points, is that they're going to make it harder for people to participate in our economy.
So what are you doing then as governor of Michigan to prepare for this, and also the Republican plans to cut federal funding for SNAP food benefits? I mean, do you have the means to fill in the gaps with state funds here?
The state can't supplant the federal dollars. That's the problem here. That's part of why we're calling on our Congress people on both sides of the aisle to fight this. It means that their constituents will lose their health care or their food assistance. It means that their constituents might not have a hospital to go to when they have a heart attack. It means that their constituents might lose their jobs because they don't have health care, or their jobs aren't paid for because of this change at the federal level. And so that's what we are doing right now. I hope and pray that it doesn't come to us trying to help people who are going to get hurt by this, because the state cannot supplant dollar for dollar from the federal government. No state can. There will be pain in all 50 states to Americans all across this country if Congress goes forward with this.
Can you get behind any other provisions in this bill, though, like cutting taxes on tips and overtime earnings? Is that something that you support?
Listen, bills like this, there are always things that might make sense. There's always ways to make government more efficient and root out fraud. But the wholesale, I think, evisceration of health care benefits for people across this country come at such a great cost that it would be better if they killed the whole bill and started over on issues that make sense, where we can address efficiencies and make government work smarter. There's always work that can be done there. But throwing millions of people off of healthcare to pay for tax breaks or new tax policy is cruel. And it is devastating for all of us.
All right, I want to move to another topic, and that is my colleague's book with Alex Thompson on President Biden's physical and cognitive decline during his time in the White House. You were a co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign. You stuck with Biden until he dropped out of the race. Given your position in the campaign, what signs of decline did you notice?
I've not read the book. I can tell you this, that as the book reports, cabinet members didn't have access. That tells you that, as a governor in a state, halfway across the country who was working her tail off, 160 stops on a bus tour that I headlined through swing states. I didn't, I was busy working. I was busy doing the connection and the voter registration. And so
you
I
didn't
can't
see signs
speak
of
to
decline?
that directly.
So you didn't see any?
I didn't see the president frequently, and I can tell you I can't speak to that directly.
Do you think Donald Trump would be president today if Biden had not run for re-election or dropped out earlier?
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. And I think that all of this is really it's frustrating because there are such huge issues that we have to tackle right now. But it does make me question a lot of things that I thought I knew over the course of the last year and a half.
And of course, your name has been tossed around as the future of the Democratic Party as a candidate in 2028. Can you give us an update on your thinking?
My thinking is trying to do everything I can for Michigan. I've got a year and a half left as governor of this great state. I love my state, and I'm going to continue to fight to get good things done for Michigan, and I'm going to fight back when people are trying to harm the people of Michigan. And that's the one thing I know and the one thing you can count on.
All right. Governor Whitmer, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.